So before Pesach, we were busy learning the parish of Rav Chaim Kanievsky on the Haggadah, and we didn't finish. We didn't finish everything he has to say. He has a lot to say, and we'll continue, even though you're not going to say the Haggadah now until next year, but the messages that he brings down are certainly very relevant no matter what day of Pesach it is. So he goes into the Makkos, into all of the plagues, and he says over a very beautiful idea. He said if you look at all of the Makkos, so it's always in the Vilna Gaon himself mentions that in every one of the Makkos, the Torah makes a point to say that the Makkah affected the Mitzrim, but it didn't touch the Yid and it didn't touch the Jews, except one of the Makkos, and that's the Makkah of Kinim of lice. The Torah doesn't say that it only hit the Mitzrim and didn't touch the Jews. It just says there was a Makkah called Kinim. It did its destruction that it did, but it doesn't point out the difference between the Mitzrim and Klal Yisrael. So Rav Chaim Kanievsky asked the question, why is it that there's no distinction in the Torah in the Makkah of Kinim, where it goes out of its way to say that it only affected the Mitzrim and didn't affect the Jews? It's a very good question. So he answers the following idea. He says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Moshe Rabbeinu the ability to make all of the Makkos. And he brought everything that was coming min hashamayim. However, as we know, each one of the Makkos that Moshe Rabbeinu brought upon the Mitzrim, so Paro would tell his astrologers, he would tell all of his necromancers over there, no, do the same thing. And in every single Makkah that Kodesh Baruch Hu brought to the Mitzrim, so their magicians, their wizards, were able to do more or less the same exact thing. So it made it look like in the eyes of the Mitzrim, of course in the end they would have to realize that it was all HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it made the Mitzrim feel that maybe Moshe Rabbeinu is the greatest magician of all, and maybe this God that he keeps coming along and talking about is the wizard behind the curtain over there who's able to do everything. And so if we could do sorcery, Klal Yisrael could do sorcery, they could do magic as well, and we'll do the same thing. But we know that by the Makkah of Kinim, the sorcerers came back to Paro and they said, this we can't duplicate. This is the Etzbe Elokim, this is the finger of the Ribono Shel Olam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's finger is the one that is doing everything. It's impossible for us, like Rashi says over there, that it's not possible for Kishuf, for black magic to be shoylet, to rest on something that is as minuscule as the size of the lice. And therefore they said, this we cannot duplicate, it's impossible. Says Rav Chaim Kanievsky, so since that all of the magicians that Paro had were not able to duplicate this particular makkah, this plague over here, that itself was the greatest proof that it was coming from the Ribono Shel Olam. Meaning, what was the proof by all the other makkahs? That it was only HaKadosh Baruch Hu and it wasn't any side of magic or sorcery. The fact that the Makkah only affected the Mitzrim and didn't touch the Yidden, that was the greatest proof that it's only coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When it comes to the Makkah of Kinim, when it comes to the Makkah of lice over here, so since it's Be'etzbe Elokim, it's the finger of God, and the Egyptians cannot duplicate this particular Makkah, there is no greater proof to the Mitzrim that this is coming directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore the Torah does not go out of its way to stress over here that you see that it only affected the Egyptians, didn't affect the Jews. So in fact, all of the Makkos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought upon the Mitzrim was really not per se for the Mitzrim themselves, that they should be only destroyed and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should rip their nation apart. Every one of the Makkos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought, like the Ramban writes in the Chumash, every one of the Makkos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought was to reintroduce HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the creator of the world, as the master of the world, and as the mashkiach, as the one that is watching over every single detail of the world. And the reason that he did it was not per se because the Mitzrim had to learn the lesson, but rather it was more important, as I think Rabbi Hamburger spoke out on Thursday or Friday night in his drasha. It was valuable for Klal Yisrael themselves to begin to get reacquainted with Hashem. Because if you remember and we recall, Klal Yisrael at the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim was already by Mem Teshar Tumah. that on the 49th level of Tumah, they had totally assimilated into the Egyptian society and culture. The Rambam says that they reverted to Avodah Zarah once again, and they forgot everything that they learned from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and therefore there was no amunah at all in Klal Yisrael, kimat none. So every single Makkah, every single one of the plagues was only to come and teach Klal Yisrael who the Rebbeinu Shalom is. At the same time, the Mitzvah also learned, and that was part of their terrible mistake, was that if you see HaKadosh Baruch Hu again and again and again and again, and everything that Moshe Rabbeinu says is 100% true, so at a certain point you're supposed to give in. However, Paro, with the hardened heart that he had, could not give up his ruler, his kingdom, would not give up his rulership over here until finally, as we'll see, in the way that it's described over here, but we'll see that when it finally comes to Makkos B'choros, then Paro has no choice. He calls uncle at that point. It's over. The game is over at that point. When he finally is Maida ala emes, he finally admits to the truth that Hashem Elokim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is the God not only of the universe, and not only is he the God that created everything and made Yesh Ma'ayin, something from nothing, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the mashkiach of the world, watching over every single detail to make sure that it runs exactly the way that it's supposed to. And he keeps a cheshbon, he keeps a running tab on the actions of Bnei Adam, of people, and he does everything mida keneged mida, measure for measure. He punishes those in the way that they deserve to be punished, and he rewards those in the way that they deserve to be rewarded. Okay, we'll stop here for now. We're going to daven Marv right now, and like I said, we'll still be able to say Sfiras Omer. Those of you that are makpid on later zman, and then you'll wait till around after 8:05 tonight to count. And Be'ez Hashem, we'll see everybody at 8:30 a.m. for the minyan of Achdus of the Ashkenazi and Sephardi world coming together as one. So please join us in the morning, 8:30 tomorrow. Mincha Marv once again at 7:20 p.m.